Hello everyone, and a special welcome back to all you heroic horses, chameleon confidants, and sun-loving snowmen out there.
And you are...
This is Versus. I'm your host, Mark Ellis, and today on the show, I have the dastardly deed of deciding a duo of Disney delights as in which film will reign supreme, Frozen or Tangled. Yep, I'm the same simpleton that's taking you through episodes such as Arnold vs. Stallone, RoboCop vs. Terminator, and Tango vs. Cash, and now I'm putting all of the chips into the center of the Disney classic animation table. Will Anna and Elsa chill Tangled's hopes? Or will Rapunzel and Flynn climb their way to victory? And full disclosure, we haven't actually done a Tango vs. Cash episode yet, but I'm pitching it for next season. As for these two animated blockbusters from the 2010s, it should be quite the competition. In one corner you have Frozen, the uber-successful franchise-launching first film that thrives on the bond of sisterhood, the rivalry of siblings, and a snowman who isn't sure he loves winter. In the other corner is Tangled, the tale of Rapunzel that features a villainous mother type, a charming rogue hero, and the strongest hair follicles this side of Andre Agassi.
I'm gonna tell him.
Don't you dare.
Wait, that was a wig? Okay, well, Poison lead singer Bret Michaels' hair.
Somebody's gotta tell him.
Get out of town, that's fake too? Alright, look, as my world collapses around me, let's just look at how we'll determine a winner. Round 1, box office. Round 2, Tomatometer / audience score. Round 3, characters. Round 4, music. And then we'll do a wild card round that Pascal the Wonder Chameleon hopes is all about acting range. I could actually do a whole episode just based on Sven versus Maximus, but they will get their time to shine later. And as much as I love doing a fun intro to get everyone loose before battle, eventually we do have to start this fracas, which means one film will take the crown of the best Disney flick of the decade, and the other will have to...
Let it go, let it go.
See? I got out of the way early. Now we can relax and enjoy the Princess Rumble. Let's get it on. Round 1, box office. In breaking news, animated Disney films tend to do okay at the movie theaters, and that's only when they're not smashing every box office record known to humanity. Anytime Mickey releases a new drawn picture, a billion-dollar haul is in play, and for one of these two flicks became a reality. Yep, 'twas Frozen that set worldwide records.
This is amazing!
But Tangled came first. The 2010 flick based on the story of Rapunzel and her ladder-like locks crushed at the multiplex, combing almost $600 million at the worldwide box office. That's certainly a fresh-smelling scent, but the profit margin wasn't quite as lucrative. The movie and its frontier-shattering animated technological advances proved costly, and the final budget has been estimated to be around $260 million.
That is really... that's unfortunate.
It was a risky investment, but it did end up making folks rich. By comparison, Frozen only cost $150 million to make. Only $150 mil? How much did Steamboat Willie cost? All you needed back in the day was a pen and a sticky notepad. The times they are a-changin'.
Sorcery. I knew there was something dubious going on here.
But don't fret, studio heads. Frozen did just fine, if by fine you mean $1.28 billion across the globe. That smashed the previous record held by an animated film, which had belonged to Buzz, Woody, and a very sinister teddy bear. It also became the highest earner in the history of the musical genre, and the top grosser of any female-directed film ever.
And for that one moment, everything was perfect.
Pop that champagne, but chug it quick.
And then that moment ended.
Records were meant to be broken, and Frozen no longer has those records. That's the bad news. The great news is we're keeping it in the family. Frozen 2 broke its older sister's marks and still holds them to this day. Currently, Frozen 1 is either number 2 or 3 on the all-time animated box office list. It really just depends on whether you count the 2019 Lion King as animation. I mean, didn't they actually have like one shot of a real thing there? But then we had that weird moment halfway through the movie where the miracle of giraffe digestion kicks off the circle of life, and now my head hurts again.
I don't understand you when you talk like that.
The bottom line is Frozen made a crap ton of money. The run Frozen had at the theaters is just as impressive. It started out sprinting with a $93 million opening weekend, but then marathoned its way through the winter, grossing at least $2 million every weekend from November 27th all the way until March 16th. Anytime you can rake in cash from Thanksgiving to St. Patrick's Day, you're doing something right. And now adding to Frozen's portfolio is its highest honor yet. You win round 1.
How about 2 out of 3?
I love Tangled, but it didn't even make half of its opponent's return, even though it cost more cheddar to make. Now, if I had to levy an argument, I might point out that Tangled's production process definitely helped curtail the spending on Frozen a few years later.
You know how I feel about the mumming, blah, 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 blah. It's very annoying. I'm just teasing. You're adorable. I love you so much, darling.
But come on, Money talks, and $1 billion shouts, and Frozen gets on the board first. It's 1-0.
Patience, boys. All good things to those who wait.
Round 2, Tomatometer / audience score. Not only did Frozen dominate multiple seasons at the multiplex, but people went cray-cray for it. If you're still a top-selling kid's backpack, lunchbox, or tricycle, chances are you're also beloved as quality cinema. But Tangled opened to rave reviews and shuttled Disney into a new dawn where technology met modern storytelling. Spoiler alert, both flicks are super certified fresh. Frozen is at 90% on the Tomatometer, and Tangled is nipping on its icy heels at 89%. And although it did shatter Toy Story 3's cash record, the sequel to Frozen couldn't match that franchise's staying power with the critics. Frozen 2 is still fresh, but it's 78%. And since we're sticking with just the originals today, until we get that Tangled sequel, which I've been patiently awaiting, I know you're reading my letters, Goofy. How's about a deeper look into the audience score? It's just about as close as they come yet again, except this time, it's Tangled who seizes the upper hand, earning 87% of the audience's love compared to 85% for Frozen. Oh boy, why do I get the feeling every round from here on out is going to be this close? And now for some quick math. I usually don't do stunts on the show, but if we combine the percentages of each flick, it makes just a 1% difference, and it's Tangled that comes out on top 176% to 175% for Frozen, as opposed to every professional athlete ever who only gives 110%. It's like they're not even trying. Since I still have plenty of time to kill in this round, I'll point out what I just learned. There's actually more Tangled adventures to enjoy. We're still waiting on a proper feature film sequel, but Rapunzel's Tangled Adventures ran for multiple seasons and saw the return of stars Mandy Moore and Zachary Levi. And they're probably watching this show right now. Hey gang, I love A Walk to Remember, and I was on the Chuck train from day one. By the slimmest of margins, as in 1 whole percentage point, I'm giving the round to Zach, Mandy, and Tangled. Team Hairbrush gets on the board and ties things up 1-1.
Oh, somebody get me a glass, because I just found me a tall drink of water.
Round 3, characters. Well, that certainly was a breezy round, which gives us more time to thaw out my feelings for the primary, tertiary, and tetra-tertiary characters in this phase.
What?
Sure, we love the leads of these respective flicks, but I'm also going to scrutinize the adorable animal sidekicks, the conniving villains, and the sentient snow. Do we have an origin story for Olaf as canon yet? I bet he's from Buffalo, New York.
I don't have a skull. Or bones.
But before we get to those adorable sidekicks, the wonderful princesses, or the dudes who hope to one day take one of them princesses to the Olive Garden, let's break bad with some antagonistic energy. Submitting for your consideration, Hans, the ostensible villain in Frozen, voiced by veteran stage performer Santino Fontana. He shares some qualities with Mother Gothel, the Tangled nemesis, played by another stage great, Donna Murphy. They're both actual 3D characters as opposed to a decidedly one-note baddie like we've seen in some previous decades of Disney storytelling.
Stop no more, you'll just upset me.
Hans does have some redeeming qualities and seems to genuinely care about being a good leader, even if that meant completely lying to Anna to get there.
Oh.
Meanwhile, the relationship between Mama G and Rapunzel feels even more emotionally complex. She clearly harbors some affection for Rappy. Can I even call her Rappy? Rap Z? And there is evidence of a circle of protection over the child that she kidnapped and locked away in a tower.
Oh, great. Now I'm the bad guy.
But it's just because G wants to stay young and vibrant, and come on, don't we all? Cryotherapy and Botox may not have been available in these times, so you may have to consider more extreme measures to maintain that youthful glow. As for the princesses themselves, the sibling rivalry of Elsa and Anna should feel very familiar to anyone who grew up with a bro or a sis. At any given moment of my own upbringing, I could point to who amongst us 3 kids was displaying personality traits of either lead character. Although if you were just to look at me as a child, you'd assume I was more of an Olaf. What can I say? Whatchamacallit bars are delicious. Elsa's guilt and her stunning ability to keep her emotions about her life choices at bay make her one of the more tortured and introspective folks in all of Disney history, and Anna's relentless belief that good can prevail acts as a nice foil. There's also lots of potential therapy topics boiling just below the surface for Rapunzel, who is far from a locked-up damsel in distress. Sure, she'd love to find a partner and forge a freer life for herself, but her plucky optimism, resourcefulness, and feisty nature are a clear message to the audience that she doesn't need saving. which is good news because Flynn Rider is likely more bark than bite.
Oh, come on!
He fancies himself the hero of his own story, but he's less about brawn and bold and more about charm and goofiness, which is a refreshing update from past generations of more alpha Prince Charmings that roll out of bed, save the day, then live happily ever after. Zachary Levi's natural sense of humor and easy manner add the perfect spice to Mandy Moore's grounded dreamer, Rapunzel. But can we now please talk about Pascal and Maximus, the real heroes of that movie? Pascal could have been a Jason Bourne-level spy or an Antonio Banderas-styled assassin. Does no one remember that movie? It was Antonio and Stallone and Julianne Moore, and they played assassins. What was the name of that movie? Anyway, he was also in X vs. Sever. Point is, Pascal can be center stage when it behooves Rapunzel, but his ability to cam out any time makes for a useful and humorous sidekick. And then we have Maximus, and along with him comes a scalding hot take from me. I root for him more than the other Maximus. Yeah, that one entertained me just fine, but Disney horses have a long lineage of bringing levity to a flick. Max adds even more. The dude is basically a dog in a horse's body, and that makes him the perfect Wookiee companion to Flynn's Han Solo, and then maybe Rapunzel's Princess Leia, and look at that. I still kept all those metaphors in the Disney family.
Well, I've got to say, didn't know you had that in you back there. That was pretty impressive.
Olaf the Snowman was a hit right out of the gate, and I gotta imagine that's why absolutely no one showed up to the theater to see The Snowman. Mr. Policeman, you should have just not made the movie. We don't want anything bad happening to anything made out of snow. Yet Olaf's obsession with warmer climate provides a much-needed lighter subplot to Frozen's main focus. Sven has some dog qualities and some solid laughs as well. He's no Maximus, but I guess he'd make a solid Proximo. We're spoiled with more modern characterizations of classic storybook tropes in both of these films, and it's a lead reason why both movies were so successful. But as endearing as Anna and Elsa are, they might have their own movie stolen by a talking glob of snow, and I love Olaf. But Tangled feels more balanced between the characters, and the sidekicks enhance the main plotline of Rapunzel's yearning for freedom and companionship, in that order. And while Hans is a solid villain whose motives aren't just reductionist Decepticon, they're more than meets the eye. But Mother Gothel belongs in the pantheon of all-time great Disney villains. Yes, I said it. Evil enough to warrant being on that list, but deep enough to make us consider her view of the world as well. It's not an easy task.
You know what I see? I see a strong, confident, beautiful young lady. Oh, look, you're here too.
And neither was judging this round, but I'm giving the point to my guy Maximus and whoever else was in that long-haired movie. Tangled scores the point and surges ahead of Frozen 2-1. Round 4, music. Well, Frozen had the early lead, but since then, they've let it go. But Elsa, Anna, and company have a good shot in this round, and it's going to feature my musical appreciation towards both soundtracks. Maybe we'll pull in some data as well. But remember, numbers are fun, statistics are informative, but the winner of this round will be whichever film's music makes my heart soar, believe in true love, and hope that peace will reign over conflict.
Well, he was sprightly. Especially for a man in heels.
Or I'll just pick whichever movie's best song my niece is singing this week. The legend Alan Menken did the music for Tangled, and it was slightly different than some of his previous efforts. Films within the Disney empire like Hercules, as well as other works, featured Menken working in his wheelhouse, which would incorporate a decidedly rock-influenced style. But for Tangled, he's been quoted as saying it was his most pop-oriented. Fun fact, the great tune When Will My Life Begin was originally going to be a song called What More Could I Ever Need, and was to feature a much more positive outlook on being held captive in a tower with some luxurious amenities. And while that may have suited me just fine, I'm the kind of fella who could live in a hotel for years as long as there's a gym, Netflix, and that fancy lobby water with the random fruits in it. Delicious.
I love it even more.
But I get that not everyone is as simple as me, and some people, like Rapunzel, might want to dream outside of the confines of their current situation. No amounts of confining could contain the runaway success of the Frozen music, so let's talk about just how great Let It Go is. Originally, Elsa was going to be more of a one-note character, but the evolution of this tune helped deepen her own emotional journey. Written by Robert and Kristen Anderson Lopez, both saw this as an opportunity to get more than surface level with Elsa. Kristen thought the song would be a perfect conduit to describe the intense pressure and scrutiny that women go through on so many levels on a daily basis. And Robert wanted the number to reflect the feeling of being a straight-A student, then suddenly failing a test. Where do you go from here? But the star of Let It Go is obviously the soaring vocals by Idina Menzel. The Tony Award winner, who was on the original Wicked on Broadway, is such a singular talent that not only did her tracks elevate the film, the soundtrack for Frozen became a worldwide sensation. Moving more than 3 million copies, the cassette tape, CD, MP3, or 8-track became the top-selling album of 2014 and may have been that rare case when the music helped keep getting people back to the theater to see Frozen again and again. Demi Lovato added a more top 40 version of Let It Go, and other hits like For the First Time in Forever and Do You Want to Build a Snowman cement this album as anything but a one-hit wonder. The Tangled soundtrack also performed admirably, hitting the Billboard Top 200 charts with a peak at number 44. It was also the 7th best-selling soundtrack of the year and rose to number 3 on the Kids chart. But even with Mandy Moore and others belting out quality tunes like I've Got a Dream and I See the Light, the darkness cast by Frozen's shadow is quite large. Even though it may be permanently lodged in the heads of millions of parents around the world,
It was like my whole life got turned upside down.
the Frozen soundtrack combines irresistible songs with a pop sensibility that makes the perfect engine to tell that story. Tangled works as a full-on musical production as well, but the tunes weren't quite as memorable as the Disney phenomenon that would follow 3 years later. So while I can thank Tangled for never getting a song stuck in my head for weeks on end, I have to award Frozen the point for a monumental musical achievement. Team Sub-Zero wins the round, and we're tied at 2 apiece. And now it's time for the wild card round, Legacy. It all comes down to this. The wild card that will determine the match is the same round that will examine the lasting impact of these two feuding films. Don't worry, they'll be friends again after this competition, and will no doubt laugh about this when they're hanging out with the other Disney princesses from Ralph Breaks the Internet. That's seriously one of my favorite scenes in any movie ever. As we mentioned already, Frozen looms large over just about any other animated film simply because of its amazing level of success. Over $1 billion earned, 3 million records sold, and an untold number of little tykes getting into ice skating will testify to that claim. And while the success of Tangled was also substantial, it was nowhere near hot enough to help thaw the icy grip that Frozen has held over all other animated fare this century. But the lasting impact of a movie isn't just tied to its financial success or catchy tunes. If Tangled wasn't a complete revolution in terms of classic-style animation technology, it was at least a giant leap for cartoon kind. So yes, that beefy $260 million budget did pay off. Tangled pioneered a more perfect blending of drawn and CGI interplay, and the results were stunning. Just look at that now iconic lantern sequence, or any shot we're lucky enough to get of Rapunzel's flowing locks. It looks like real hair! And much more real than a certain tennis player or a certain hair metal frontman that I just found out about. Cannot believe I fell for it.
Like a chicken with the face of a monkey.
Frozen cost less to make and did much better at the box office, but that was no doubt taking a cue from Tangled's meticulous production process. Where Frozen does have the upper hand in this stage is the instantly recognizable song power and the sisterly conflict that took a very different turn than lifelong Disney fans might have expected. Despite the fun of Sven and the quick jokes from Olaf, the plotline gets dark at points and echoes the emotional impact of turning point scenes from films like Beauty and the Beast and The Lion King. But whereas the full picture of Frozen can't quite live up to those all-time great predecessors, Tangled is blissfully unaware that some dope on a show called Versus would ever be judging it. It just has a blast from start to finish, giving an updated brush to Rapunzel's mythological locks. The movie is quick, smart, and deceivingly deep in its themes of longing, risk-taking, and the consequences of an overbearing parent. While Gothel is neither an absentee mother figure, and she's definitely not the cool mom who wants the kids to drink Chardonnay at my house, she does possess more introspection than the surface level of villains before, like Maleficent. Well, until they made her backstory, and then she became sympathetic. Cruella de Vil. Now they made her backstory, and now she's sympathetic. Okay, Jabba the Hutt. It's a one-note, vile, gangster, eats frogs, hopefully not Pascal, because he's a chameleon. Whereas Frozen feels long in the tooth by the end, though nonetheless enjoyable, Tangled breezes through its runtime and leaves the perfect combination of fulfilling us without over-serving. It's an interesting dichotomy because Frozen's runtime is 1 hour 42 minutes, only 2 minutes longer than Tangled. My heart wants to vote for Tangled here, because I do find it a better Disney flick and more rewatchable. But Frozen's legacy isn't just tied to one film. It had an even more blockbustery sequel, and beloved Olaf has spun off numerous pieces of content that I dare say were more widely seen than anything else in the Tangled universe.
You're way overthinking this, trust me.
And as great as Tangled is, it works just fine as a standalone film. Frozen feels like a bigger world in which we can continue to have adventures that might just happen to rack up a cool $1 billion on the big screen. Tangled gave Frozen all it could handle in this matchup, but at the end of the day, from these two beloved films a winner must emerge, and Elsa and Anna have earned the win in the legacy round and thus the match today. I fully accept that this decision will alienate me from Maximus and Pascal, who likely is already blended into the wall, so I can't even apologize to the poor guy.
Let it go, let it go.
And that's how it goes here at Versus. I walked into this matchup expecting to have some fun celebrating two modern Disney classics. But I'll be darned if this Grinch didn't grow a heart and remember how much I love Mandy Moore. Not enough for me to check out This Is Us, but a walk to remember still rocks. And now it's your turn, dear viewer. Frozen winning is just my opinion, and I was rooting for Tangled.
He's crazy.
But Disney makes films designed to be enjoyed by all, so give me your take. Hit me up on social media at Mark Ellis Live, and head over to RottenTomatoes.com for a slew of deep dives into the best animated films of the 2000s. Thanks for watching Versus. I'm Mark Ellis, and as Olaf would say, I'm like a baby unicorn.